Good evening. My name is Dan Almdahl, and I'm a Public Information Officer on Northwest Team 10. Welcome to tonight's community meeting, where we will be providing an update on the Boulder fire. Now, thanks for your cooperation. This is a community meeting, public meeting, so I encourage you to participate. And how you can do that, if you're watching online, you can submit your questions or your comments in the chat. And after all of the speakers have concluded with their remarks, we will address those questions that showed up in the chat. For those of you here in person joining me in Wamak, good evening. I'm glad you're here. And once those questions have been answered from the online group, then you will be given the opportunity to ask questions yourself. Thanks. So we're going to start this evening. Our first presenter is the incident meteorologist, and he's going to give us an update on the weather and a forecast. Thank you.
All right, good evening. My name is Stephen Van Horn, and I'm one of the incident meteorologists on the Boulder fire. There's actually two of us. But of course, I want to talk to you about the weather, both what the weather we've seen and the weather that we're going to see, but I also wanted to kind of talk about the climate and the distinction between the two. So climate is more of a long-term, how the weather changes, both temperature and precipitation. It's important for this fire too. And both of these posters here I'm going to be focusing on. So this first poster, or this top poster up here, is actually the drought outlook, and this is produced by the Climate Prediction Center. They do long-term outlooks. They also do an outlook for the drought as well. And in this bold here is actually highlighting the county that we're in, Wasco County, and the fire is actually burning right up here in this part of the county. And so these colors, there's a key right here. This kind of beige color is considered to be a moderate drought. As you get into this orange color, we're getting into the severe drought. And so for this fire, we're actually in the moderate drought portion of the scale, but you can see there is some severe drought pretty close as well. And so I did bring some notes, and I did see, and I wrote down that as far as precipitation is concerned, over the last 3 months, so beginning April 1st, we are in a 2 to 4 inch deficit for precipitation over that period. So that has definitely contributed to the dry conditions that we have and the drought conditions that we have as well. And over the last month, we've had a deficit for precipitation, and so those drought conditions have only gotten a bit worse. So that's one factor. That's something that we've had to kind of consider, and myself as the meteorologist, the incident meteorologist, is the drought conditions and the status of that. Down here, this is what we call our fire weather matrix. So you're going to see a lot of colors here up across the top. This is the date. So Friday, tomorrow, going out through Wednesday, looking at the forecast. And then there's all these different parameters that we look at as well. Some of the bigger ones, temperature, precipitation forecasts, and of course the winds and the humidity. Any of these red cells that you see is something that we look at as far as more critical, or the potential for critical fire weather conditions. If we start to line up some of these red cells for one particular day, then that's something that's a concern when it comes to the meteorology and the weather. So I guess before I talk about the forecast, just kind of backing up a little bit, over the last few days, what we've actually seen is it's been warm, and it's also been breezy. We've seen some westerly winds. And then just to look at this map, when I talk about westerly winds, I'm talking about the winds coming from the west, and that would be from your left to the right across the fire here. So the nice thing, or the good thing, is that the fire is kind of down in this drainage, and after me will be the fire behavior, and we'll talk about how the winds impact the fire. But the winds haven't really been going down into this drainage. It's been fairly protected, and we have seen some breezy winds up on the ridges. So that's what we've been seeing the last few days. As we go into the forecast on this row, our winds are going to be still continuing to be out of the west, kind of turning a bit more northwest as we go into the weekend and early next week. We do actually have a cold front that's going to be coming through, and those winds are actually going to be picking up. If you look over here on this row, we got some greens, and they kind of go into a red. So on Monday is a day that we're looking at where we could see some breezier winds, and that red color then again showing that the winds could be strong enough that potentially it could be an issue. But again, because of the valley, it's pretty protected from those westerly winds, which has been a good. The humidities, we've been pretty dry. We're actually going to get quite a bit drier over the next few days. But when that cold front comes through, the humidities do come up. We do see some moisture coming in. So that's good. We're going to see the winds, but we're also going to see some moisture with it as well. So not everything quite lining up as we go through the weekend. Hot and dry, but we're not going to have the winds. And then as we go into early next week, we're going to have the winds, but we're going to kind of lose the hot and dry with it. So that is good, for the short term. And the long term, I just wanted to talk about, again, kind of talking more about the outlook, sort of the climate, the longer range for our weather. I was looking at the Climate Prediction Center and what they were forecasting. And over the next 2 weeks, we're looking at above normal temperatures or a better potential for above normal temperatures and also below normal for precipitation. So again, we are in mid-July. Climatologically speaking, we don't see a lot of rainfall this time of year in the summer, and so it does look like we're going to kind of be following that. August we're dry, and we don't really start to see our rainfall until we start getting to the fall season. So that kind of summarized what we've seen over the last few days and what we can expect for the weather as we go into next week and kind of a longer outlook. And I'll be here if there are any questions.
Good evening. I'm Forrest Owenby, the fire behavior analyst. So the fire behavior analyst, I kind of look at a couple different things that are going to affect the fire, try to give information to the firefighters and to our crew or supervisors of them so they can make good sound decisions and keep people safe out there. And so fire behavior has kind of 3 components in it. One is the weather, which you heard a lot of, and hot and dry are 2 components. But the one that really affects fire a lot is the wind. And we've had strong winds, and you've seen strong winds down here. One thing really nice is where the fire is located, as Steve said, it's in this basin, in the Boulder Creek. And if anybody's been in there, it's a pretty big basin, runs kind of north and south. And so as those winds are coming from the west, they're hitting the top of the ridge. Well, the fire started down in there, and it's going right over the top of it a little bit. So it's not impacting the fire very much. It's kind of just scooting over the top. The fire did have an influence, though, and that's another thing that we look at is topography. And as you look at these lines, when these lines are really close together, that means we got steep ground. Fire wants to go uphill, kind of the opposite of what water does. Water will find the path that goes down. Fire is going to find the path where it can go up and climb. And when I have a hill that's fairly steep, it's going to want to go up faster. And so when we had the fire start, kind of down in the lower parts of the valley, it ran up, and it did run up pretty hard. But with the west winds, when it hit the top, it was blowing all the embers back in on itself, which is a good thing. It kind of kept it right there and kept it from wanting to get bigger. So that was really good. And so it was an advantageous wind. Really, it kept it going in on itself, and it kept it staying in there. And so those are kind of the winds, and the topography is not really ever going to change. I mean, it's there. If it gets to a different area, then it changes, but what's there is out there. So that's really good for us because we can look at it and we can kind of make good decisions on what we expect the fire to do. The other thing that's out there is the fuels. And when I talk fuels, it's not gasoline. We're talking the branches, the brush, the needles, and all the material that's out there. And if you notice the difference, like down here, we see a lot of pines, grass, and it's really open. It's a forested area, heavily forested in some areas. Some of it's been logged and some of it hasn't been. And when you get into the areas where it hasn't been logged and the trees are taller, what we see is some of those branches on the trees, and there's a lot of moss on the trees and lichen. And all of this is hanging up in the air. And it really causes problems for the fire because it's just like, it wants to go right up it. It's like kindling. it just lights it really fast and easy, and it'll climb the trees. And then when it climbs the trees and it goes up into the tops of the trees, it's throwing embers all over the place. And as those embers fly, what we call those are spot fires, and then we got to go catch all those spot fires, and it makes it difficult. The other thing that causes spot fires is some of the topography, and there's trees out there. If they fall, they end up rolling downhill, and then it'll want to run back up. So that's a problem as well. But the fuels out there have really been an issue and causing that. And then in that heavy timber, it's not all living. A lot of it's fallen down across, and it's just like somebody went out there and cut the trees down and stacked them all up. And so you have all this heavy slash laying out in there. When the fire gets into there, well, what's the weather been? Hot and dry. It means that your firewood would burn really good when you need it to burn in the winter, right? But now it's summertime and it's hot and dry, so it's going to burn. It's going to burn easy. And then all those big piles of it are going to burn for a long period of time. Again, as it burns longer, it makes it difficult for us to put it out. It's resistant to suppression, and so it makes it harder. It takes time to get to it. But there's a lot of fire line, a lot of suppression work, and so what they're doing is they're building fire line around it, and it breaks up the continuity of that fuel. So if there's a break with a fire line, now it doesn't have fuel to burn. So as it continues to consume that, it allows us to contain the fire, and it gets us closer. So they've done a really good job with the air and with the crews of stopping all of that, and we've reduced those fuels so it's no longer having those to burn. But it still has a lot inside that it can continue to burn, and it does have these trees, and it didn't burn them all, so they're still out there, and some of them could still spot up. And that's the end of the fire behavior, and I'll be around to answer questions afterwards. Thanks.
Good evening. Bert Thayer, one of the operations chiefs on Northwest Team 10. This is old home week for me. I love being here. I grew up in Condon. I watched the combines, and reminded me of my high school and college of starting to cut wheat in Arlington, and then we'd end up in Fossil in September. So a lot of good memories for me in this area. I'm going to talk about the aviation resources. So we've gotten a lot of questions from the community of why didn't we just put retardant on this and put it out? One of my other jobs is an air tactical group supervisor, so I fly the fire and organize the airspace, direct helicopters, and fixed wing aircraft where to drop. So we'll talk a little about the decision process. So if you're going to use retardant, whether you called for it as the incident commander on the ground or the air tac in the air, it goes to the dispatch center. And there's a limited number of retardant capable aircraft in the nation. If you've got multiple fires going on, there's a protocol that you have to go through. First one is how many lives are threatened. Second one is how many primary structures are threatened, not vacation homes, secondary homes. Third, is there critical infrastructure that's threatened? Fourth, are there any special needs of why you need retardant? So that's kind of the process to go through. Whether we're given the fire retardant or we're giving it water, it never puts the fire out. What does the term retardant mean? It means it slows the fire. So who's putting out the fire? The guys on the ground. It slows it down enough, it slows the fire behavior enough that the guys and gals on the ground can get in there and work the fire line. So let's say as an example that I ordered retardant up. So with retardant, its primary chemical in it is a fertilizer. So that means you have to stay 300 feet away from all the creeks, 300 feet away from all the lakes, 300 feet from any creek that may bear water in it. So in this steep country, that really limits where you can use retardant at. And just as a side note, if retardant really put out fires, what would they call it? Fire putter outer, right? So that doesn't work. The other thing with retardant, and it was mentioned a little earlier, is the canopy. It doesn't penetrate well through the canopy, so you have to use a lot more of it, which shortens down those lines that you can build. So the decision was made to use water on this, and it was the right decision at the right time with the right tool. So we ran fixed wing air tankers that could scoop out of the water, and we ran helicopters. So the turn times for the helicopters dipping out of these lakes was really, really quick. Get in, get out, get in, get out. For the scoopers, they used Timothy Lake. So once again, a short term. If we were using retardant aircraft, they would have to go to a base, probably Redmond. So they got to come in, they got to land, go over to where they fill up with retardant, get back out. So what does that do to the turn time? Makes it way longer. So I did a little math, and as of the end of business yesterday, rotor wing aircraft had put 275,000 gallons of water on the fire. Fixed wing aircraft have put 284,000 gallons of water on the fire, for a total of 560,000 gallons of water delivered by aviation at a cost of $1.7 billion. So the other thing with retardant, we would have had to pay for retardant as well too. But it wasn't the right tool at the right time. Water is what did it. So that's the aviation. Thank you.
Good evening, Josh Rippey. I'm one of the other operations section chiefs, and on this incident, I'm the field operations, which means I'm coordinating all of the folks that are out on the ground in coordination with the aviation assets. First off, what I'd like to say is, when this incident started on Saturday, the first response of folks that were the initial responders did a heck of a job on this incident, getting the right tools, like Bert was just mentioning, the aviation assets to this fire to get the right tools for the right job. And that is a big proponent of why this fire is the size that it is so small. In addition to, some of those other factors that Forrest had talked about with the way that the winds were. So kind of like he said before, that was roughly about 600,000 gallons of water, I believe is what that number was. That kept that in check until we were able to get all of the other resources that we have on the ground right now. Approximately, there's approximately 200 folks that are on the hand crews, along with a number of engines. We've had 3 dozers on the fire. And then we brought in some other stuff to do some other projects, excavators, masticators. You guys have probably seen the equipment either going up, or some of the stuff I've noticed is local stuff, so you guys probably know the operators. And one of the first things that we like to do when we're on a fire is we like to establish an anchor point, which is usually somewhere near either the heel of the fire or someplace where the firefighters can work safely. And on this one, we had the road. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar, but we have the, kind of the road that goes right below Boulder Creek to the trail. That was a good anchor point for us, as well as a couple of spur roads that go up above for this Forest Creek trail that goes along the bluff. So initial actions that the crew took was to start building line on this side to give us something that we can work off of, and they did that in coordination with the aviation that we had. And as we built more folks around, got folks into place, at this time, as of 2 hours ago, from the 4880 road up here by the Boulder Lake trailhead all the way around that rim back down to the 4880, all of that has been lined and is got hose around it. And so we're talking about all the water that the aviation put on it. We're going to put as much water and have as many folks digging on that. Water alone doesn't put the fire out. You got to mix and stir. Like Smokey says, if you remember on your campfire, this is our big campfire, and we're going to mix and stir all along this edge until we get this to this point to where it's secure, to where it's not going to jump those lines. One of the other things, so that 4880, we kind of have that. You can see these 2 lines here that are breaks. Those are what we call division breaks. We break it up geographically of assigning some leadership to those fire sides of the fire. And on this, what we're going to call the Division Echo, we gave it a name, pretty original, Division W, West, East. On this east side of the fire, this goes down into a lot of really, really thick timber. And so the fire didn't burn as active in that, but what it did is with all the spotting that it did, it creeped and it made what we call a dirty burn, which is basically it's a lot of patchy fire all around. And so that's been kind of a challenge point that we have on this fire is within that, it's real thick, trying to get people to walk through there. And when we're being really deliberate and making sure that we're encompassing all of the fire so that we don't miss anything in any spots. So this is about 3/4 of the way lined. I wasn't able to get a message in if that the last bit to get our hand, and most of this was being dug by hand crews, and they're working along, cutting out using chainsaws and Pulaskis to get a line around that. Things right now, today, we only flew one air mission, and that was to fly some equipment down into Boulder Creek drainage where we've put a pump. So we have a pump in Boulder Lake. We have a pump in Boulder Creek. And we got hose lines that are stretching off of that. And the folks are beginning to mop that up, mixing and stirring, and securing all those edges. Couple other things that we're also doing just because of the how difficult that terrain is. We're bringing in a drone. Hopefully that will be here tomorrow. And that drone has a thermal imaging camera so it can see hot spots. And our plan is to do in addition to the hand crews that have been walking through here and gridding, we're going to do an aerial grid with that thermal imaging camera to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure we don't miss any spots. All of this mop up, it's going to take some time. It's not a, hey, we just squirt a little bit of water on it and it goes out. This is takes some time. So we're being deliberate and being very methodical and making sure that we're getting it so that we don't miss stuff to get this fire to the point where it's not going to jump lines. So with that, I'll turn it over to the next person. Chief.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Larry McGill. I'm Chief for Wamick Rural Fire Protection District. We saw the fire basically start on Saturday. We were coming back from over at Juniper Flat, and I mean it was fast. A lot of you saw that it was just all of a sudden it was just a massive cloud of smoke. So we were able to get equipment quickly. I dispatched John Goldman, my assistant chief, out of Rock Creek, and he was one of the first on scene to start putting water on it. So then the Forest Service, when everybody just kind of converged at the same time, we stayed there for about 9 hours to help them and support them. And so the team has been amazing to work with because most of you know I'm a farmer too, and most of our water comes out of Badger Creek and 3 Mile Creek for this side. And to go in and be able to work with the team and show them the demographic of what this country is and what it does and what it feeds for Rock Creek and for Pine Hollow, for our livelihoods as farmers, and for them to sit down and listen to us and really understand the sensitivity of what this fire and the potential that this fire had is amazing. So I really appreciate being able to work with them. They've been great to work with. Other partners we always enjoy working with, ODF and all that too. So either way, that's all I've got, and I'll pass it off.
Good evening, Sheriff Lane McGill, Wasco County. Just as a follow-up to that, we initially received the call on Saturday night, and through that reception, we deployed all of our road assets to the area. Just so everybody knows, this whole entire area here, Windy Ridge, all the way up into the Badger Lake area of Hood River County and stuff, this has all been evacuated. Part of the process that we do when we get one of these incidents is we set up what they call map lines. It's basically a high-tech term for a trip line for evacuations. this map doesn't show it, but we put a series of trip lines in here that go out and come all the way from the fire, clear here to Rock Creek and Pine Hollow. Those map lines or trip lines are all set in place with GPS, latitude and longitude and different things like that, right? Once they get to that point, then Fire Command calls us, and then we start the process of notification to the citizens and stuff like that. We have not reached any of those map lines. We're actually quite a ways away from them. Right now, no promises, but we anticipate that we're going to be okay and we're going to leave those map lines where they're at. We're working actually in conjunction with U.S. Forest Service law enforcement on this case. They're actually providing all the security at the scene as well as around the fire and the roads, ingress and egress. We're just augmenting those resources for U.S. Forest Service because they've deployed their assets. We'll help them if they need any kind of help on the fire scene or with traffic or anything like that. What you will see in the future is, and we're anticipating, no promises, but we're anticipating sometime next week, this whole area where the road closures are at right now, where the campgrounds have been evacuated, we're thinking that may shrink next week sometime. U.S. Forest Service is going to make those determinations as this fire gets more and more lined and there's more and more control of it and different things like that. Once again, we'll augment with the U.S. Forest Service and their patrols in that capacity. Other than that, that's where we're at. We're going to leave the evacuation trip lines in place just in case this thing goes sideways on us. We're better to be prepared and have the time to give you guys a notice to get you out if we need to do that. But that's our part in the operation right now. So, and I'll take questions afterwards when we're done. Thank you.
Good evening, all. Steve Kramer, Wasco County Commissioner. We appreciate the work that Chief McGill, Assistant Chief Goldman, and the staff out here in Waumik. Your volunteers are incredibly useful to this organization out here, and we can't thank you enough for all the work that you do. Wasco County is just a support mechanism for this group. This team has been here many times before, and new faces to the to number 10 team, but we appreciate all the work that they've been doing, and don't have much more to offer that, but give these guys some space. Make sure that you keep your speeds down when you're traveling around for all the guys' safety out here. And one other piece of information, ODF, Wasco County, and the State Fire Marshal is collaborating on an effort right now to put in a position for a wildfire coordinator so that we can fill in the gaps on all of these pieces that we're missing right now, so that we can make sure that we cover our entire county and make sure that we're all safe. So thank you.
Good evening, folks. My name is Kristen Dodd, and I'm with the Oregon Department of Forestry. I'm one of the local fire manager based out of the Dalles. We provide fire protection services as well as forestry services to landowners in both Wasco and Hood River counties. Many of you have likely seen our engines. We have our guard station just up on Dodson Road on the wildlife area that we staff a couple engines during the summer months. The reason that I'm here is to talk a little bit about our part and our role in this fire and fires in general. Again, we do initial attack. We provide protection for private lands in this community, as well as state lands such as the state fish and wildlife area. But we also can't put fires out alone. We are very strongly supported and dependent on our partners so that we work together to put those fires out collectively with each other. So as you've heard from some other folks, you've got the Structural Fire District, the Forest Service, the Department of Forestry, we've got other partners such as the BLM. When the bell rings and when the smoke column hits, we all respond, and it doesn't matter whose land it's on. Our goal is collectively the same mission, to put that fire out. We were able, when this fire first started, to come out with our resources and help with that initial attack. We also host two of the Fire Boss aircraft up out of Dallesport. We were able to utilize those, scooping out of the lake and the river to help with that suppression effort. now that the fire has kind of remained in the footprint here that it has, and we're really happy and hope that that continues to be the case, we continue to stay involved and partner with the forest, and really appreciate, they're letting us be part of the planning process as we try to put this fire to bed, and protect the communities and make sure that for the rest of the summer, where there's a lot of time left between now and when the fall rains come, that this fire won't be a worry, for these communities. You all have experienced fires in this backyard that have threatened these communities in recent years, and so we know that when you see that smoke column, it brings back those old memories, probably not so favorable. So, and as Commissioner Kramer mentioned, part of those collaborations with our partners are to get monies to put on the ground to help, provide treatment options and reduce that fuel loading and those hazards for forest health and resource protection and property protection. So we'll be around after the meeting wraps up, and if folks have questions, we're happy to answer them. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name's John Bowers. I'm the new Deputy District Ranger here on the Barlow Hood River Ranger Districts. I've been here for about 2 months. I've been working with Cameron Sam. I'm sure you all are very familiar with Cameron. Yeah, so this is the circumstances. I hope to meet you all, for the first time, but here we are. This is how things go. As Kristen alluded to, you all are no strangers to fire, so, this is not the circumstances I hope to meet you all, but here I am. When this fire started getting going on Saturday, rightfully so, there was a lot of nervousness in the community. When that smoke column was rising in the air, I'd live in the Dalles. I could see it myself. I was feeling nervous. Fortunately, due to the vigilance of our, Womack Rural Fire Department and our Forest Service firefighters, we were able to, identify the fire pretty quickly, get a jump on it. We realized it had the potential to go pretty big. Obviously, it was not only threatening, our Badger Wilderness and some important recreation sites up there in the area. More importantly, it was threatening the local communities here, threatening your sources for water, for farming, things of that nature. So we knew this was a big deal, and we jumped on it right away. So on Sunday, we made the decision to call in the Type 2 team, Northwest Incident Management Team 10. And since that time, a lot of hard work has been done. We've made a lot of progress, as you all can tell, as the other folks have kind of alluded to. We've been making a lot of positive progress on this fire, and that's wonderful. We want to keep that going for the next several days. It's not a solitary effort, though. It's been a team effort all the way around. And that starts with you guys, the local community. Y'all have been fantastic. You've offered us all the support we could hope for. We initially had base camp set up there at the Do for School. That was fantastic. It's all been going great and smooth, and we just want to thank you all for that. We want to thank our cooperators, Womack Rural Fire Department, the Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol. Everyone's been great, and that's all we can ask for. So we're going to continue that effort. We're going to continue moving that way, and hopefully we can get this fire into a manageable condition, and that's the way it's looking. But as always, there's potential for it to go sideways, as someone else alluded to, but we're doing everything we can to not allow that to happen, and I just want to reassure you all of that. As I said, again, my name is John Bowers. I'm the new Deputy Ranger here on the Barlow District. I'm fairly new to this area, and so I look forward to working with you all in the future, getting to meet everyone. I'm happy to be here. This is a beautiful place, and I can already tell you all care a lot about this area. So, to me, that means it's important to me as well. And that's all I got for you all. Thank you.
And I get to close it out. Good evening, and thanks for taking the evening to come tonight. My name's Al Lawson. I'm the incident commander for the fire and incident commander for Northwest Team 10. And the local. And like Chief said here, I was walking out of a restaurant in the Dalles having lunch with my wife and looked up and saw the smoke and went, uh-oh, that doesn't look very good. I live in White Salmon. By the time I crossed the bridge and got home, it looked even worse. And then I got the call from dispatch that they had a fire. And so I got here very quickly. I got here probably maybe 6 or 8 hours before we were supposed to actually take the fire over, because I wanted to get a bird's eye view and wanted to meet the people that were out there and get intelligence on what was going on out there in the ground. So my job, and we travel all over the Northwest. We've been to other states as well. We've been to Colorado, California with the team, etc. However, what I would say is that the folks you had out there initially, and it's been said earlier, were fabulous. They did a great job. I can't speak more highly of your fire chief, your fire districts, the folks who are out there, our partners that went out and tackled this thing. It's a hard job, and my primary focus for my job is about people. And I tell that to my team. It's about the people, right? It's about you as the public and keeping our firefighters safe. And I look today, and there's 385 heartbeats, 385 people in terms of the management and people on the ground. And it would go without saying that we owe a big thanks to those people who are out there sweating and digging line and trying to put this thing out. A lot of young men and women out there working a lot of long hours and doing a lot of hard work, right? And it's not over yet. We've done a fantastic job. We brought in mechanized equipment, aircraft. The luxury of this fire, if I could say so, is that we had really everything we needed. We weren't competing against a lot of larger fires across the geographic area. So we got a lot of what we asked for, right? And so we knew that, and so we put everything we had to bear on this fire, and which is why you see the numbers of people and why you see the numbers of equipment that we have out there. We wanted to make sure that it's going to be a long summer. We wanted to put it to bed as quickly as possible, bring normalcy back to the communities, which is the end game of our goal, right? And get the heck out of here, right? And get ready for the next one. And all the firefighters are the same. It's going to be a long summer, and we're preparing ourselves for that, right? So we're going to put this thing to bed. We're going to turn it back to our partners who are the Forest Service with this one, and in a way that they're not going to have to worry about it. I was talking to Adam, the FMO, and he and I had long talks that he doesn't want to have to go to sleep at night and worry about this thing. He has other things to do, and where the other fire starts, he wants to be ready and capable of going out and doing it and not have to worry about this one. And that's our goal, is to turn this thing back in a way that we're not going to have to worry about, right? Again, fantastic job with everyone. I couldn't be prouder of the team. I couldn't be prouder of our partners. It was really obvious to me when I got here how solid those partnerships are between the agencies, between the Sheriff's Office, Department of Emergency Management, your fire districts, Oregon Department of Forestry, Forest Service, and all the others. Man, what a great group to work with. And it's been a pleasure to be a part of that. So with that, thank you and have a great evening.
Well, that concludes the online portion of our community meeting. Thanks for participating. Special thanks to the folks who asked questions in the chat, also to the kind folks here in Wamak who've offered their community center for us. Really appreciate. Thanks also to the speakers. And it's just been great to be here. Thank you so much. Be well and good night.